All right. Well, this is Laravel DFW for February 2015. And so we're going to be doing a roundtable today about Laravel 5. Let's go ahead and kind of introduce ourselves. We have one other person joining in. They're having trouble, so we'll see if they get in. But yeah, why don't we go around and wrap up with me? So Stuart, why don't you start first?
All right, Stuart, and just a Laravel student, still in school, uh, doing a lot of PHP work. I've been working on, um, been playing around with some Node stuff recently, but super excited about Laravel 5, and have been definitely following all of the improvements of the last. When did they announce? Like 5 months or something? 4 months? Been a while since they announced that they were going to come out with 5. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about it and hear what you guys think.
Cool. Osvaldo?
Yes, so my name is Osvaldo Brignoni, and I'm currently joined a retail store, and they sell jewelry. They have 8 stores here in Texas, and I'm working on their e-commerce and currently using Laravel 5. And also, I'm working on finishing up a nice project for the Stripes agency. It's um, it's for a music school, and so they'll provide sort of like video tutorials for people that want to learn music, and it's built on Laravel 5 also, and that's almost done. So it's been a nice experience using it
Very
so far.
nice. Cool. And so my name is Tanner Hearn. And I work. I'm the director of product at MusicBed in Film Supply. We do music licensing and film licensing for a lot of great musicians. We have over 500 music artists, and we have a web app that's on Laravel. It's actually Laravel 4.2 right now, and so we'll be migrating it to Laravel 5 soon, I'm sure. And then we're building Film Supply, which is the same. And then we have an iOS app, which we send stuff through our APIs to, streaming music from all the artists, really great and talented. And so it's really great. So Laravel all around, I think, for everybody here. So why don't we kind of um, start the conversation off? I'm posting 2 links, guys, really quick in the chat. One is from Laravel News, and the other is from Matt in his blog over there. And so you can just kind of see some of the stuff we'll be talking about today, but we'll just be rolling through some of the big updates in Laravel 5 and just kind of talking through them and how you expect to use them or if you don't, or how you find it useful or if you don't, or all sorts of things like that. Um, and so yeah, we'll start there. So let's see, there's one other thing I was going to say, but I forgot what it was. Oh well. So first on the list, um, the new directory structure. So that's probably the most obvious to everyone. So have you guys, I guess first off, have you guys touched Laravel 5? That would be a good starting point. Osvaldo, I know you said you have, but Stuart, have you done very much with it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I've done some I've messed around with it. I haven't like built anything fully, but I mean, I think obviously the structure is a step in the right direction. I think before it was kind of like, uh, oh, this is how Rails does it. We'll just do it this way, right? Because this works, and then it works. But I think that kind of taking everything that the community has learned in how Laravel has grown to kind of make its own kind of path in terms of the directory structure and what actually makes most sense and how people use it. I think that at first it's obviously a little confusing because it's not necessarily what we're all used to, but once you kind of figure out how it works and that all your basically all your code goes in the app directory, and things are separated into HTTP and console and like all those other folders. It definitely makes a lot of sense, and with the PSR4 auto loading under that app directory, it makes things like so easy to like churn out other new classes and stuff like that inside of it.
Osvaldo, what about you? I
Yeah,
guess you already said you have, so I guess what's it like for you?
I mean specifically about the directory structure, it's supernatural for me. Uh, I know some people have complained, oh, where's the controllers, molders, folders? But I think all those folders that were kind of opinionated are a result of the old way of doing PHP, where there were no namespaces. So I guess with the birth of the PSR standards, things like this started shifting, and so your app being the root of your application, all your classes living in there, just gives you the freedom to decide your structure. And keep coming back to one of the things that Taylor mentioned in one of his books, that the concept of models is like almost irrelevant when
Hmm.
in the style that the applications are being developed today, especially with all the new patterns and domain-driven design,
Right.
concept of entity. So you still in Laravel 5, you still have some default folders that feel a bit familiar. Like uh, the HTTP controller, you put all your controllers in there, but you don't have to. You can just put it wherever you want.
Hmm.
You have new things like the commands, and that's another thing I want to talk about. I love the new commands feature, and the command
Right.
been great. I am using it like for almost everything, and it's very scalable. It just works.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. I've looked at it a little bit, and I really like the structure, like you said, Osvaldo. And yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot more sense when we're talking about multiple entry points into the app, whether it be from the command level or from the HTTP level. So I really think it's going to be good. So let's talk about Blade. There's just like some minor updates to that. I think it's a good change. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, if you have any questions, just go to laraveldfw.com/ask, or just laraveldfw.com, and then there's a button to ask a question. You can post a question, then we'll talk about it and answer it for you. So that's laraveldfw.com. So ask your questions there. So I think the new blade changes, though, back to that, are good. Um, so it looks like both the double and the curly escape everything. Have you run into any problems with that? I mean, it sounds like it should be pretty seamless for upgrades.
Yeah, I like that things are escaped by default. It and the thing is, there is a chance that most of the data that you output doesn't, it's not gonna be like markup, so it doesn't really conflict with whatever I'm doing. Just the only thing is that maybe if you're using the HTML package for forms, you have to escape those tags
Right.
so that it displays the inputs. But other than that, it's been super like you don't even notice it because most of the times you're like outputting properties of the models, and those are should be escaped by default. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, I thought it
Yeah.
was really good in terms of just being able to glance over it. You know, normally you'd be like, kind of look through it and be like, all right, this has two. Wait, that should be three. And then wait, is three the escaped one or not the escaped
Oh,
one? Like,
right.
it's so easy now. You just like, okay, these are all like everything escaped unless there's two exclamation points. It's like obvious. It just makes so much more sense logically. Even coming over or like converting your code over, even just starting fresh, it makes more sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like the syntax of the double exclamation point. So
I I wanted to make a pull request for just an extra tag, but I just was so busy. Um, what do you think about having something like checking if a section exists? Like, there's not a directive for that. You have to kind of write it in PHP.
what do you mean?
Like, for example, you have a template where you have a yield inside a pair of H1s, but you don't want to output the H1s unless the section exists. So you will have to wrap that that markup with some PHP to check if the section exists. So you have um, section,
Hmm.
just to use to insert the content into that section of the template. So it would be like has section, and so you can check if a section exists
Right.
before.
Yeah,
Out.
that'd be good. Did you get very far on? I guess you said you were too busy to really post anything.
It's a very easy thing to add, really, but I just didn't have
Yeah.
any time to write the code. But maybe
Right.
for an incremental version, I don't know if does Laravel usually accept like minor features in between, like or we would have to wait for Laravel 6 to for new features like this to go.
Um, I don't know. I think that they'll release things probably. I mean, it can get merged in, I'm sure, and released in some sort of like smaller release. I don't see why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, like a 5.1 or something.
Yeah,
Done that
or
in
even
the past.
smaller.
Yeah, because
So,
I think, I mean, I'm not the only one. I searched around and I found somebody trying to do the same in the forum, asking, is there a way to check if a section exists? And you can write it easily in PHP, but it'd be nice to have, a directive for that, to have that short syntax.
yeah, definitely. That makes total sense. Um, so, like, before we move on, James, you joined us. How's everything going?
What's up, guys? Long time no talk.
How's it
Yeah,
going?
yeah. So, have you taken a look at Laravel 5?
I have just the release notes. Yeah, I haven't installed it yet, if you will.
Right. Yeah, so we're just talking through some points that you can check in the chat for the links there. But um, so I'm looking at the Laravel News one. Really, they did a good job of bringing everything down. So let's talk. I don't know. Do you want to talk about contracts a little bit, and then we can move on to commands and events? Also, you were talking about commands. So yeah, what do you think about the contracts?
You mean me?
Anybody, jump on
Uh,
in.
Sorry, I've got a dishwasher. I've got the washing machine going on behind me, so I put myself on mute.
all right, so contracts, totally. I mean, it's a natural PHP thing to do, not just Laravel to rely more on interfaces.
Right.
And before, you had a couple of interfaces that were missing for things Laravel. So the fact that he, that got added and all the missing ones are there, it's super, super awesome because then
Hmm.
if, further down the road you decide that you want to change the implementation for any of those, you just, develop something and bind to that interface and you're done.
Yeah, I think that's going to be helpful just trying to understand some of the abstractions and whenever things need to be moved around or adjusted. Just being able to dive in and understand where that's being placed and how you can extend it. I think that's going to be good. Yeah, in the docs um, they talk about implementing some of those if you're trying to um, roll some of your own stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be super helpful.
And
Um,
yeah, and I think like I've stopped using facades altogether.
right.
I prefer using contracts because it's less magic, it's more explicit. What are the dependencies for this class? I'm injecting, this contract that does this. It makes more sense to me.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk commands then. Have you done a lot with it with your new app that you're building, Osvaldo?
Yeah, I love it. It's awesome feature. Number one because it has the built-in, method injection in the handle method. If you're using, you have by default a command is self-handling, which means um, you just have the one handle method to write your logic, and you you can encapsulate like different transactional
Hmm.
operations of your application, into little commands that are the class itself is named for the purpose of what it does, that transaction, post, you know, comment, upload
Hmm.
picture, whatever. It just, and I'm using it for absolutely everything. I'm creating little commands to inject, two dependencies that should work together to do something. Just do that, you're done, and you can fire an event inside of it, and then you have this command and event driven application. It's just very scalable. And
Hmm.
Yeah, I need to dive in more to it and just get into the command bus and understand a little bit more, but I think I have the baseline knowledge enough to understand how it would be useful. So, Stuart, what have you done with it so far?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually used them at all, actually, like in practice, but in terms of, oh, I'm curious, like Osvaldo, like what you think. Like, are you basically just say like in your controller, are you just like firing off commands, or like what is it? How do you use them specifically?
there's dispatches command straight.
Hmm.
I think the base controller that comes with Laravel 5 has it. So from any controller that you extend that, you just do, inside your controller method, you can fire any command by doing this dispatch and instantiating, new post comment, and you can design your command to take any number of arguments,
Hmm.
and you handle the actual operation of the command in the handle method. I
Hmm.
could probably jump into my repository and show you a couple of examples. If I don't know how much time you want to dedicate to talking about commands. If you want to move on to the next topic, but
Hmm.
I could show
Yeah,
you.
maybe while we're talking through, you can pull something up and we can talk through it
Yeah.
Hey, have you guys
in a
touched on
bit.
Socialite yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yeah, we can I think we're almost there. Just a few more other things.
Well,
Yeah,
also,
Osvaldo, why don't you pull
sorry.
Osvaldo, why don't you pull up your stuff while we're talking here, and then we can come back to commands in 5 or 10 minutes. What were you
Okay.
gonna say, Stuart?
Oh no, just on the topic of commands and like pipes for commands, I think it's really interesting to be able to add like essentially like middlewares for your
Yeah.
commands to like wrap them and like they use the example in the docs to like wrap your commands in a transaction like a database transaction or do other things like that. I think that's really really cool because um, I think the wrapping them in database transactions itself is like really awesome because normally you'd maybe have a command and then you'd like start a transaction at the beginning of every command or something where you can just basically pass it through a transaction on its way to the command and then I think
Right.
that's going to be really useful. Have you used pipes at all, Osvaldo? Or
No, not yet. I want to try that.
Mhm.
So, in a nutshell, how does it work?
It basically works like a middleware for your routes or like a filter. You basically you can have as many as you want, and it's basically something that runs before your command, or I think you can have it run after too. I'm not totally sure,
So
but
it's called pipes.
yeah, the command pipe.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't see that at all. I gotta check it out. That
Yeah,
sounds. Yeah, it
Yeah, I guess
makes.
they have like is it called pipeline or
maybe.
uh, there's
Yeah.
some sort of like yeah way that it goes through there. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool
Um,
for. I mean, like, I think there's just a lot of possibilities that you could have with it. I'll
mhm.
post a link to it.
I found a really good example of a command that I
Okay.
use for integrating with Recurly. I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
All right.
Okay, so you see my screen.
Almost there. There it is. Yeah.
Okay, so here it is. This is my repo in Bitbucket. I'm gonna go to raw here. So this is create subscription command. It implements self-handling, and I'm taking two arguments in the construct. Just the plan code. It's unlimited currency USD. And then in the handle method, it has dependency injection. So I'm injecting the Recurly um, API library thing.
That's cool.
I just take care of the transaction here. I'm done, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's actually covering the method injection, which is new too, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Method
So
injection.
I can fire that from anywhere I want that uses the dispatches command trait, and it makes things really reusable. I mean, if you keep commands small, uh, it works really well.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man. That gives a little bit more context to it. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of power and makes it way more structured and clean. So um, next, why don't we talk about like the helpers and how the shift from facades has been? Um, are you guys gonna keep using facades? James, do you like facades?
I don't care either way.
Yeah. So what about Osvaldo? Are you using more of the simple function calls that they have with creating views or responses and things?
I try to inject as much as possible, but I use the redirect helper a lot. What else? Action and templates. I use for the routing. I use get post. Is there post
Mm-hmm.
helper? No, there. I use get. That I use a lot.
Right.
So I like those. Um, in templates, I use helpers as much as I can, instead of
Right.
in favor of instead of using like a fast path because it makes things simple. But other than that, like I stopped using facades altogether. for either first or inject a class or an inject.
Right. I think you have a little bit of feedback, James.
Yeah, that's why I keep putting myself on mute, man. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, well, what about unit testing? You still use facades in your unit testing? I guess if you're not using it in the application at all.
Yeah, I do unit testing also with what's it? I've been unit testing recently. PHP spec.
Yeah.
So when if you're injecting interfaces, it works well with PHP spec.
Unit testing is really something I need to step my game up on, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's never ending.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah,
always
I
learning
think
something.
that's the craziness, yeah.
I think the one thing I like in terms of, even besides like the testability and whatnot of method injection over, say, facades, is just kind of being able to look at the top of your methods and understand what dependencies it has. You know, if you just have all facades,
You don't know when they're going to show up. Yeah.
yeah, you got to read through your method and actually see what stuff you're depending on. While, you know, if you're method injecting everything, you know, you can. It's very easy to look through and swap out components or do stuff instead of having to kind of look through the logic of your code.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. I hadn't really thought through how self-documenting just doing method injection would be, but yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
especially if a developer inherits your project, he's gonna be happier if things are injected. You
Yeah,
can define quickly, like especially with an IDE like PHP Storm, you just do the shortcut and you jump to the class. It's nice.
yeah, because like even when there was, you know, constructor, well, there still is, but the constructor method injection or constructor injection, it was, you know, obviously sometimes you'd be injecting into a method that didn't need it because you used it in another method or something, and you're kind of like overlapping your dependencies, and so it was never self-documenting because you didn't actually know if you used it in what methods or what was going on. But now it's like super clear. And then on top of that, now that you can also use constructor injection, now you can say, okay, in my constructor, here is you know, 3 dependencies that every one of these methods uses, and then on a per method basis, here are the ones specific to this method, which I think is like super self-documenting and like very useful.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about route caching? I heard something from Taylor, I think he tweeted a few days ago, that doing like 300 routes in a file, he was able to get like 3 times or 4 times more performance using route caching using Laravel 5. That's crazy to me.
I think there's a caveat to that, though, that you've got to use that RESTful routing, right?
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be just if you are explicitly specifying the routes and then they are cached. I mean, it wouldn't really matter what they're going to, because there's just going to be resolving to a controller method, or I guess maybe a closure or something, but probably a controller method, right?
Oh, that's what it means by controller routes. I completely forgot that you can use routes as closures. I haven't done that for so long that I thought he was talking about RESTful routing.
Well, his
Funny.
comment was just there was like 300, 300 routes, which were going to controllers,
Right.
but just
I
by
read too far into the documentation.
Oh, yeah.
I had a similar thought though when I saw it first.
So, anyways, have you guys tested it all?
I know I haven't. I know at least on any projects I'd be doing, I don't know that it's actually something that's necessary for, you know, have like 10 routes or something.
Right. What kind of stuff
Where
are you building?
um Nothing specifically right now. I mean, right now I'm just playing with it, but
More like just CRUD
nothing.
apps and things, or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, usually like a lot of CRUD apps, but nothing that is like enough that it would really affect it. I mean, I'll still probably cache my routes just because, but um,
right?
but it's. I mean, obviously for bigger applications, it's like crazy. There was like I remember when we talked to him, he said it took like 600 milliseconds or something for like X amount of routes, and then it was like down to like 10 or something ridiculous. Where, I mean, if you're hitting that much time at the beginning of just entering the app, that's like a huge cut.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just that alone can increase even your SEO,
Mm.
and especially as many reports are coming out just about how seconds coming off of the load time can increase revenue just because people aren't falling off.
Hmm.
I mean, that's huge news. I think it's really great to know that's being focused on because, I don't know, it ends up going to the bottom line of every business that's being built, using these apps. So,
I'm definitely
um,
gonna use route caching for the e-commerce site.
yeah, with already.
No, I'm gonna. I'm
Uh,
right in the middle of development, so I'm not worried about that now. But when it's almost ready
mhm.
for production, I'll cache it, and I'm gonna, benchmark how what a difference it makes. But even if
Yeah,
it changes a
you'll have to
little,
share that. I'd be interested to know what
hmm,
it is.
what do you mean?
I said I just meant you'll have to share your statistics, whatever comes back.
Sure.
What how far along is that? Because I guess you're building on Laravel 5. When did you start building that?
I've been playing around with some concepts because first, when I got into the job, I had to understand their logistics and how their legacy application works because it's just a terrible application that was developed with no MVC or object-oriented principles. It's like queries inside templates type.
Right.
It's just so. But the amazing thing is that the site works and runs, and
Right.
it has like $1 million a year revenue for them.
Wow.
So we expect like if also the thing is the site has a lot of one-to-one queries, like very inefficient multiple queries per request, and
Right.
the site sells. So imagine if we rebuild the as a Laravel application, it runs fast, and
Right.
I predict that the sales will go up.
For sure.
So
That would be really interesting
I'm
to
just
know.
I'd say I'm getting started. I've developed a couple of parts like user management, roles and permissions, and right now I'm in the middle of developing some part of the admin so that the staff can upload products, you know, because they sell just tons of jewelry. They have like 26,000 um, different kinds of jewelry, and
Right.
they take a picture, they upload it. So I just want to make it as easy as possible for them in the new application.
Sure.
And I'm working with the Stripes agency to make it more SEO friendly. So they're developing a couple of ideas, both in the sense of advertising and also functional requirements that will make the site better.
Right. That sounds really cool. How long are you thinking it's going to take?
I think I want to have a prototype by the end of the month, and that's aggressive. But hey, Laravel just allows you to develop this fast. I mean, uh, but a production ready maybe in 2 months, I hope, to where we can flip the switch and replace the old website.
Are you gonna? I guess you'll have to do a lot of migrations for orders and
Oh yeah.
just products even. Like, forget all that orders. If you
And
have
like
26,000
you
single products in one category, I mean, you're gonna be crazy.
you look, and that's the other thing. I jumped into this project for two main reasons, because I wanted to gain experience in e-commerce, and because they really needed improvements. So what better way of jumping into a company where you can make a big difference? They have an app that doesn't work well, and you're there to replace it with something better. And that allows me to learn like a whole lot uh,
Right.
about Laravel 5, but in general. Uh, so man, if you look at the legacy code, it literally makes you want to cry. The the database structure is like we should have only one products table, because usually products always have a title, a description, but no. He has, for every category, there's a table with the exact same columns. So there's like 30 tables, one for bags, one. It's just, oh man. But
Instead of having categories or something as its own entity.
yeah, it's just the worst database design ever.
I remember I did something like that once on my like first PHP project. It like instead of having it was like a like voting thing for like different colleges. Instead of having it like select where college equals this, I had a different table for each college. There was like a few hundred tables. I like had no idea what I was doing. I like used PHP for like a couple weeks and like yeah.
Yeah, we've all been there, uh, and you learn. We all have to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
I've done terrible things too, but this guy went. He's on a Guinness record.
Oh my
Well,
God.
so let's talk about Socialite.
Hmm.
It seems pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about what it's offering in terms of authentication, because it makes it like way easier to log in with
Mhm.
Facebook, Twitter, Google, and GitHub, or I think of the current four. Yeah, those are the four. So, um,
It's
So
an
does
optional
I don't
package,
know.
right?
It's just crazy to me how easy stuff is getting.
Hmm.
so does it allow to quickly set up like a Facebook sign up thing?
Hmm.
Yeah. So you can still do form-based authentication, but it also allows you to do OAuth through Socialite. Um,
Because
so
I need that for this project, and
yeah,
I'll probably try the social bite for that. See how
yeah,
it goes.
yeah. It's pretty awesome. I mean, it's like it just seems super simple here. The documentation is
Mhm.
like 3 paragraphs long. It's like, here's how you do it. This is where it is. See you
Yes.
later.
It
So,
it's an optional package, right?
um,
I think it is.
I don't know. Oh, let me see here. Yeah, it looks like it is.
Because I can definitely see, like, I don't necessarily see that, like, Taylor adding, like, a ton of different, like, things to connect with.
Providers or
But I can
whatever.
see, but I can, yeah, for the different providers, but I can see, like, a lot of people come out with, like, essentially their own, like, providers to, like, link up with Socialite.
Yeah, I mean, because since it's not in the core, I feel like it could eventually include more. But I mean, truthfully, Facebook, Twitter, Google, and GitHub, I mean, there's not too much more unless you wanted to do maybe like, I don't
Mhm.
know, like a WordPress thing, or
Friendster.
maybe Yeah.
I guess it's nice that it covers the most demanding ones, and then there's other packages out there that handle OAuth and have like 20 integrations.
Right. I guess you could add like LinkedIn maybe. That's the only
Yeah.
big one that's maybe not on there.
Yeah, yeah. That was the only other one I had thought of too.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
I haven't tried it yet, but it's definitely gonna be really nice. I mean, obviously there have been packages for OAuth and connecting to these services for Laravel, but there's just it's always the the best when they're tailored
Right.
the Laravel way. They just integrate very well.
Yep. So, hey, if anybody has questions, remember just to go to Laravel, dfw.com. There's an ask button there. Or you can go to laraveldfw.com/ask. Okay, so Fly System is now integrated, so that's pretty amazing. Had you used Fly System when it was outside of the core
I
at all?
haven't I haven't used it, but I've been following its progress for a while and seeing examples. And I have a, a friend that has used it, uh, and I want to use it for this project for handling images on Amazon.
Yes, that's actually what I was going to say, is that I'm probably going to use it shortly on a project to store images up on Amazon, maybe S3. Um,
Yeah, maybe we should keep in contact and share our experience. So
yeah,
maybe with maybe we have to solve the same problem.
yeah, probably so. Although yours sounds like it's going to be absurd with
Oh,
with
no.
so many photos. Because I mean, there might be like several photos per product, so you're going to be dealing with tons of photos.
The thing that's crazy to me about Fly System is like you're still like interacting with files in the normal way that you would with Laravel, but basically like where you're sending it is just like through a configuration essentially, and like I could basically have them, without changing any of my code except for my configuration, the files could be, locally they could just be saved to the file system, but then like when it's in production, they could save onto S3 or like all this stuff. It's just like
That's awesome.
awesome. The like
Yeah,
level of abstraction that they've created for it is like you don't have to do anything. You just say where you want to go, and it'll do it.
yeah. I mean, it's just everything. I'm just so amazed at just how easy everything gets every single year, every month even. It's like new stuff comes out. It's like, oh, where it used to take you this long, how about it takes you no time? You just
Mhm.
hit Composer install, and then you just like do one thing, and it's done.
One day the app is gonna design itself, and we're gonna end up, you know,
Yeah, and once we reach the singularity, then the website can build itself. So there's other things like the environment variables. That's pretty cool. Just how that's changed. There's Laravel Elixir, which is cool. If you're dealing with front end stuff, I want to talk about Laravel Scheduler though. That's a huge one. Being able to just schedule things directly in your PHP code without, messing with many crons. Um, that's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at first I was like kind of like, oh, I mean, I don't really get it, but I mean, now like, I mean, it makes complete sense. I mean, having it under version control and not having to, you have to set it up once on your server, but then once from there, it's just completely automatically done, and the way it's
Yeah.
written is way more natural in terms of PHP because is way. I mean, you kind of just have to relearn cron every time you use it.
Yeah, I know, and it's like, yeah, I hadn't even looked at the documentation, but now I'm looking at it. But I knew it was going to be this. It's like at the top, here's the one cron you need to create.
Hmm.
It's like boom, there's just copy paste, and then get it rolling, and then you don't have to do anything after that, which is just
Yeah,
crazy.
and also like the fact that it gives you the one command to run. Because I in the past just I don't know why, but it kind of rules out the troubleshooting of is this the right command? Where like
Right,
okay, like the command basically is just your entry point into the app, and then it's just all handled from there, which is really really nice. And I think in Forge you can modify cron and anyways,
right. Yeah,
which
that's
makes it
true. You
even
can.
easier.
Yeah, adding it to a Forge server is going to be a snap.
Yeah, it's gonna be so easy.
So, yeah, scheduler's crazy. The new Dyn dump is pretty crazy
Mm.
too, with var dumper. Um, Gosh, yeah, I just don't even. Okay, so here's one I don't quite get. I just haven't messed with this a ton, but the eloquent attribute casting. So,
Mm.
it looks like this came from Dale Rees. So, attribute casting allows you to convert attributes to another data type. As an example, in your model, you add a cast property. Um, so it will automatically cast specific properties to attribute types.
Mm.
So I guess what would that? I mean, do you guys know where that would be useful? Where is that defining that?
Um, I I can see it being useful. I on a couple of occasions I've cast properties by doing a getter, you know. And that's I guess that's what he's trying to avoid, make it shorter, you know. So you don't have to do a method and get the property and cast it yourself. Because
Right,
like for example, if you almost always get a string, right? But sometimes you want to cast it to Boolean. If it's you return 0 or 1, you want it to be a Boolean, or
right.
vice versa. You need it to be an integer. It's nice.
Yeah, I think Boolean's like probably one of the most useful examples in terms of if you're storing a one or a zero, but every time you want to pull it out, you want true or false. In terms of like and obviously you're not going to save the string true or false, so um, kind of pull it out and it'll be in the PHP Boolean format and whatnot. That'll be
Mm,
useful.
Is there a
right,
nitpicky thing because like zeros and ones already like evaluate as booleans in the conventionals. Uh, but if you want to be explicit, it's a nice thing to do.
right.
And I think for um, like REST APIs and stuff to be able to just quickly like pull
That's
out the data.
that's a good reason. That's a good
Yeah,
reason. Definitely.
because kind of you have to be explicit to make sure that they're either in a string or
Yeah.
in a. I think you can have in JSON string, integer, or like number and Boolean, and so casting it to any of those three.
Right.
Yes, I guess that's probably the main reason why Del Reese contributed that, because it makes in that context it makes perfect sense
Hmm.
to cast.
Right. So next, let's talk about. Oh darn! I quit my window. Oh, there we go. So let's kind of like maybe close up. We have a question that we can get to after this, but maybe we can round off with this last piece of just upgrading. So, looking at the upgrade guide, it looks like Matt Stauffer and the docs have their own upgrade guides. Um, have you had to upgrade an app yet?
Not really. I think like uh, Ryan from the Pyro CMS team. He started developing the new version in Laravel 4.2, and uh, a couple of times, since there were a few breaking changes along the way in L5, the develop branch, we had to sometimes it was easier to just start fresh with an L5 installation and just move all your application there. So in that sense, if you do it that way, it's very easy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
haven't
looks
had.
like there's a pretty straightforward upgrade guide, so I think it's going to be, but unless you have a huge app, then it might be kind of crazy.
Mhm.
I think the complexity of your upgrade comes down to your composer dependencies because they might conflict.
Yeah,
But if no matter if you have a huge application and it has a small number of dependencies, it's gonna be super easy because you just start with a fresh L5 install and just move your entire app folder and you're done.
right.
Obviously, there's a couple of things like a couple of helpers, the contracts you might have to update. Other than that, it's easy.
Right. Yeah, I think it's gonna be good overall for sure. So, let's go through this question here. Dan asks, how do we feel about the significant change in the file structure of Laravel? Which, by the way, ask questions at laraveldfw.com and we'll get them. Um, I like it. I like this file structure. I think it kind of stinks from like older apps, but things are just moving really quickly. I mean, like we've been talking about, things are so easy now. It's so easy to build things, and it's getting faster to build things because stuff is already pre-built basically, and we can just include it or whatever we want to do. But I think part of the cost of that is that stuff shifts so quickly. So there may be some amount of that time savings that gets spent on upgrading stuff over and over. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Because it did come pretty quickly. I mean, the shift is only less than 2 years after Laravel 4, which is a pretty major upgrade.
Again, I think that those changes, those quick changes, reflect the overall evolution of the recent evolution of PHP and the standards. And I welcome the new directory structure because it reflects it's more in line with the PSR standards. Whereas before you had a bunch of opinionated folders that were class maps based mainly, but you had a lot of packages as PSR 0, uh, but it's nice that immediately uh, L5 is based on PSR 4. Number one, it's
Right.
not that you don't have to click through so many folders like in PSR 4 to get to your classes, and you're just following the rest of the standards. So PHP is just more. There's more interoperability with the rest of the PHP community. I think it's gonna be easier to understand for veteran developers, but it's not too complicated either for new developers. I mean, the thing is, if
Mhm.
let's say you're a novice PHP you're just learning PHP, you got a subscription and whatever.com and you watch videos on PHP and you learn the basics of object-oriented programming, it's gonna be supernatural to begin with Laravel because it's just in the end it's just PHP and it's trying to be like The changes with the middleware and other things like we used to have the filters, and it's moving towards middleware for the HTTP, layers. It's more PHP-like. Before it used to be more Laravelish style. So now that is, if you know PHP, that's why it's easier to jump into Laravel, because it's trying to
Mhm.
follow the PHP community in general
Right.
for some things.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice. Like you think of kind of the app folder now as like this bubble that everything inside of it is PSR4 auto-loaded, and I mean that was one of the first things that you do was add PSR4 auto-loading to some folder in Laravel 4, and now that's just kind of already encapsulated inside the app directory. It just gets you going that much faster, and
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of pushes you towards better practices in terms of
Exactly.
the file structure as it is.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, Stuart, what are your two topics?
Oh well, I think the first thing that we missed that I really want to talk about was form requests, which I think are one of the biggest reasons I'm like I really love one of my favorite features of Laravel 5 because the fact that you can just add your validation and method inject it, and then it'll just automatically run
Right.
is awesome, and it cleans stuff up so much, and it's so nice to kind of have your have all of those classes in their own folder, and just kind of to easily be able to switch between different validations. So like, because normally I'd be like, okay, I used a validation that was minimum of this much and maximum that much. Okay, whatever. I want to go find where that is and copy and paste it. Where this now they're separate classes, but they're all in one folder. So your form requests are easier to get to and reuse code from, as well as the I forget what it's called, but the authorization of each form request as well. I think that the example they use in the docs is someone updating a comment, and because a lot of time the authorization you'll just maybe set to true and it'll just be authorized. But say you're updating a comment, first the authorization checks, does this person own that comment? And if they don't,
Right.
then it reverts back. And then if they do own that comment, then it checks the validation as well. So I think that because before it seems like so silly before. Now I think the way it works is awesome. I love it so much.
That's nice.
Yeah, it seems very nice.
I haven't. You just motivated me to start using it. No, use it tomorrow.
Yeah, I need to check it out a little bit. I don't know too much about it, so it sounds like it would be very helpful for organization.
Definitely. Yeah, and I mean, it just like cleans out clutter from your controllers. Because I know a lot of people would. I mean, I know I would do this. One of the first things I would do is kind of build my own like validation layer, kind of that
Mm-hmm.
kind of just cleaned it up a little bit, but it didn't really work it didn't clean things up that much. Just made it a little more complicated, but kept it out of my controllers. Where now it's it's just like the cleanest possible way you could do it. It works so
Right.
well. Yeah, and that it's automatically called before it even. I think the whole like paradigm itself makes more sense in terms of no code is even run inside your methods until it gets through the validation.
Right.
In terms of like the paradigm, it just makes more sense. Like none of this runs until you get through this validation as it should be.
Right. So what was your second thing?
Well, another thing that I like in terms of getting up and running quickly is the authentication scaffolding that is there. There's uh, for login, register, all of the actual PHP is there, and recently Taylor said there wasn't views for it, but then the docs I just read that there are like empty views for it, or like there are basic views with like forms in it. So I'm excited about that because that
Right.
is,
Yeah,
I mean, everyone makes registration and login, so like why not?
I totally agree,
Right.
and I'm guilty also of using the default things. Like I minimally customize the login templates, and I'm done. And I'm so happy I didn't have to do that. So good.
Yeah, because I always felt like I'd have to kind of, it's a, like whenever you start an app, you'd build the authentication system, but you don't spend much time on it ever. So I never really remember what I was doing. So I was always have to kind of relearn it every time, and it was just like this barrier you had to get through. Where now it's already done for you. I mean, it's going to save so much time, and it's great. And if you don't need authentication, you can just remove it. So I don't think it hurts anything.
Right.
Yeah, you can just delete that off on the routing, the
Mhm.
auth controller thing.
Yeah.
It's nice. I agree.
Hey, so one thing we didn't talk about was the route annotations.
Mm.
So that is currently under Laravel Collective /annotations on GitHub. And I'll just read a little bit of the description. During its early stages of development, Laravel 5 was gearing up to support route and event annotations. With much controversy and discussion on the matter, Taylor decided to remove annotation support from the core in favor of extracting Laravel annotation support to a third-party package. The result of this decision resulted in this package being maintained by a huge fan of Laravel annotations. So, yeah, I guess they maintain Laravel annotations now, so you can pull them in, and yeah, they're there. So that's pretty interesting, I think.
What are your guys' thoughts on annotations?
I like it. It totally makes sense to put that on top of your method. It serves as documentation for the method. Usually, most of the time you're mapping a route to a controller method. So what better place to have it than there, on top of the method? And the thing is that I guess it's one of those things that I have to get used to, and maybe once I start, I won't stop using it. But I haven't started, so I have to try it out.
Yeah, I wasn't really keen on it whenever I first heard about it because I liked the routes file as like a documentation for the whole app, so that if someone's trying to understand how it works, they can kind of see the structure in one thing, and separating out into the controllers makes it almost like, I mean, not really because it pulls it into the cache, or I'm sorry, the route map file, but I was like, man, it kind of makes it back to like controller-based design. But I mean, you can make obviously you can make the routes whatever you want them to be, so it's not, so you don't have to rely on controller names or whatnot. But yeah, I wasn't super keen on it, but after thinking about it, it's like you can still look at the map file to get that kind of documentation. It's no different than a routes file. And, like Osvaldo said, all of the controllers, that's usually where things are going anyways, so it kind of just saves a step, especially if you're needing to edit anything. So I don't know, I think it's more concise probably, which is, I think, a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, it didn't make tons of sense. Like, kind of putting it into all the controllers, it's like, because if I think about when I'm like, okay, what is mapping to / Tanner? How do I find that? I mean, yeah, you have like the map, but things like that. But I think one of the biggest reasons was that I always use like routing groups
Right.
for middlewares and even namespaces and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
um, just cutting a route and like pasting it up into a group now has it included with the middleware. I think that
Yeah.
having it all in one spot makes like infinitely more sense to me.
The
Right.
But I mean,
yeah.
I think yeah.
I guess if it will make sense maybe if your application is like ridiculously huge and there's like hundreds and hundreds of routes and your
That's true.
routes file is like huge, then it makes sense to because then you have more concise
Mhm.
code everywhere. Anyways, you can go back to the cached route file to examine that to see, oh, this is my first. I inherited this Laravel application. Let me check out that cache route file to see how
Right.
it's structured. Um, but still, you have to. The syntax is a bit different.
Right.
Comments. So that's just another thing to learn. But I guess once you get used to it, it must be easy like everything else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
for a small project is maybe not necessary at all. Just
Sure.
using route file is enough, and we still get route caching right from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it
think the
does
route
make.
caching's separate.
Mhm. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
make sense in a bigger context. I think having them all in one routes folder is good when you have a small project and you're kind of just tinkering with things, changing the routes a lot. Where if you're kind of planning out a bigger project, and being more concise about it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. Well, so I think overall, though, I'm pretty excited about Laravel 5. I'm looking forward to migrating one of my apps over there, and really diving in that way. So, what, yeah, I mean, are you guys overall positive about it?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Taylor did a great job. The other thing that I'm happy about is the thing that Taylor is now full time on it.
Right,
It gives you more, you know, it just feels more reliable. The overall framework, knowing that you have somebody in there constantly making improvements and um, fixing it.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it makes me like. Well, I always feel a little weird how much like everyone I feel like knows about his life, but it makes me like happy that he's can like have more time to do this and not be um, kind of having to work between work and doing this
Right.
as well. So
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I mean
mhm.
it's good for everybody else too because it's more dedicated time and energy and brain power. So,
Yeah, what are I'm just curious what you guys would say is your headline favorite new feature in Laravel 5 is.
hmm.
Oh. Commands. Uh, wow, it's so hard to choose. So many cool stuff and method injection. I love it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say, let's see. I don't know. I think the scheduler is pretty cool.
We could go on and on. And there's so
Yeah,
many like there's huge things in Laravel 5, like just having fly system. Like think about it. Before the framework, it was just local file system. Now it's like boom, integration with cloud.
right.
It's just that is huge, and route caching is so many things.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's going to be a really good step forward, and there's going to be a lot of great stuff built with it. So we're going to be building with it at Music Bed and everything else. So, well, I guess let's kind of wrap it up with that then. And why don't you guys like tell everybody where they can find more about what you're working on?
All right. Could you stay after the call ends just to talk about a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So what can people find about your work, Oswaldo?
Uh, you mean where?
Yeah, just like your stuff with PyroCMS or whatever. Is there anywhere people can find more about you on Twitter or?
Not really. I haven't. You can probably, yeah, you can find me as O Rignoni. It's a weird handle.
Oh,
Does the
Brignoni,
chat
yeah.
get recorded?
Cool. Yeah,
Right.
it's OBRIGNONI.
Yeah.
So that's on Twitter. And then yeah, we'll be looking to see what you do
Sure.
with what you're working on. So that'll be cool. Stuart, I guess we can find you on Twitter.
Yeah,
Do
you can
you,
find me on Twitter, Stuyam, Stuyam, and not working on anything particular right now. Just finishing on my last semester of college, so I'm working on
yeah.
that full time.
Well, that's a good project to finish out. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm Tanner Hearn. You can find me at Tanner Hearn on Twitter or www.tannerhearn.com. And yeah, so it's been a good discussion. I think next month we'll do a dinner here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Get everybody out in person and everything. So whenever we're talking about specific topics or speakers, it's easier to do online because it's recorded, it's live, everybody can see it, and then it's there for posterity. People can go there and watch it and learn from it, comment on it, and sometimes like restaurants and stuff aren't the best venues for that. So, but it's good to alternate up. So next month, for March, we'll be in town. So it'll be great. So thank you guys for coming out, and thank you for everybody who's watching. And this has been Laravel DFW for February. So see you guys later. Peace.
Thanks.